Welcome, and thank you for joining us for our special coverage of Virginia's 2025 primary election. The polls are now closed, and election workers are counting votes to determine who makes it onto the November ballot.
Tonight, we have every aspect of the election covered here on 13 News Now Plus, from live results as they come in from the Department of Elections to political analysis here in the studio, and crews following the candidates in Hampton Roads.
Shane Fordham, Madison Schlegel, and Alex Littlehales are live right now, and we're going to start with Alex and the lieutenant governor's race. And Alex, you're in Norfolk with State Senator Aaron Rouse's campaign.
Hey, good evening. You know, when we already sort of know the gubernatorial field for November, right? We know that there is no gubernatorial race for this primary cycle. The lieutenant governor's race essentially becomes the top race on the ticket. And so what we are seeing right now is essentially a three-person race, three candidates separating themselves from the six-person candidate field that we have for lieutenant governor. So that is State Senator Aaron Rouse, whose watch and campaign party we are at here in Norfolk. So State Senator Aaron Rouse, Richmond area State Senator Ghazala Hashmi, as well as former Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney. So inside, what we are seeing is basically these three candidates, the results changing minute by minute, but in terms of the vote tally, the percentage, each of them are trading back and forth between 24 to 26% of the tallied vote. And so again, the doors are open here at State Senator Aaron Rouse's watch party. And you know, it goes without saying there are still hundreds of precincts and counties and localities that still need to be counted across the state of Virginia. But just some early voting trends we're seeing. For starters, Aaron Rouse performing very well in the Hampton Roads region alone. In Virginia Beach, he is, as we can expect, it is his home. It is his hometown city. It is where he is a state senator, and he is outperforming all the other candidates by a very wide margin. But the question is not how he will do just in Hampton Roads, as we know, but how he can build upon that voter base, potentially in areas like Richmond and Northern Virginia, where they may not know him quite as well. So some other trends that we are seeing just relating to early voting and patterns for day of voting for this election cycle. So we know that in 2021, which was the last statewide primary for Democrats, there were roughly 120,000 early votes cast in that period. And this year, for 2025, that early voting number is up to 190,000. So we're talking about a plus 70,000 vote differential just for early voting alone. Okay, so obviously that elicits an idea that there's a lot of momentum and there's a lot of energy for this voting cycle. But we talked with the Director of Elections in Virginia Beach about the day of voting numbers. And so there's some interesting insight here too, because early voting in 2021 for Virginia Beach, just the city, 17,000. Okay, and that's worth noting because as of about 4 o'clock today, that early voting number was less than 7,000. So a lot of ground that needed to be made up when it comes to early day of voting for a primary. So essentially the big takeaway, the long-winded way of what I'm trying to explain, is that there was a large increase turnout for early voting, it appears, but that may not have been the same momentum for day of voting for this primary cycle. So again, that is what we are looking at. The hundreds of precincts are still tallying their votes. Again, three candidates separating themselves from the rest of the pack. And we actually talked to Larry Sabato. He is one of the most well-known kind of political analysts out of the University of Virginia. He runs the Sabato's Crystal Ball predictions, and we talked to him about what it would take for one of the six candidates, and to be fair, six qualified candidates, to beat each other out in this lieutenant governor's primary. This is what he had to say. Take a listen.
The winner could get, 25, 30, 35%. I would guess it would be for the top of that range. But that's not very many votes in a statewide primary, and the turnout is going to be miserable. There's no gubernatorial race So it takes politically active and interested people to come out on a hot June day to vote for lieutenant governor and attorney general. It really does.
So again, I can personally attest it is a hot June day, so we will just see. We will have to see how that may have affected voting habits today. But as I had just mentioned, the big takeaways right now, Aaron Rouse doing extremely well in Hampton Roads, but three candidates, Aaron Rouse, Ghazala Hashmi, and LeVar Stoney, between that 24 to 26% vote share of what's been tallied so far. So obviously we'll just have to keep an eye on that. But for now, live in Norfolk from Aaron Rouse's campaign watch party, I'm Alex Littlehales for 13 News Now.
Yeah, it was a hot day, wasn't it, Alex? Get inside that AC. Thanks so much. And that's not the only statewide primary tonight. Democrats Jay Jones and Shannon Taylor are fighting to make it to the November ballot as the candidate for Attorney General. Shane Fordham is monitoring that race tonight live from Norfolk, where Jay Jones and his team are gathered. Shane, what's going on out there?
Well, I am here at Afterglow Brewing here in Norfolk, where Hampton Roads native, Norfolk native, and Attorney General candidate Jay Jones is hosting a gathering of his supporters as votes are being counted and tallied. It is starting to pack out here. People are excited. The mood is high. Now, Jay Jones hasn't yet arrived himself, but we were able to catch up with him earlier today, where he was able to tell me how proud he is of his campaign. Now, sources say the race is currently razor close, as over 200,000 votes have been collected so far. Now, while the race isn't over yet, those in attendance today are enjoying themselves and celebrating Jay Jones's campaign. Jones is running his campaign based on the foundation of his experience as an assistant attorney general for Washington, D.C., and as a former House delegate for Virginia. His opponent, Shannon Taylor, is running her campaign based on the foundation of her 30 years of experience as a prosecutor, which includes 4 contested victories. Both candidates say their experience makes them the best choice for the next attorney general of Virginia.
It is about experience. It is about my proven leadership, my proven electability, having won 4 contested races against Republicans, that proven fighter inside the courtroom, leading a team, whether it be going against the Klansman who drove his truck through the march, the Black Lives Matter march in my county in 2020, whether it be when the court, calls me up and says, Ms. Taylor, I want you to be the special prosecutor to go against one of the white supremacists who marched on the lawn at the University of Virginia.
I've served in the legislature. We did tremendous things. We expanded Medicaid, increased teacher pay, raised the minimum wage. I've been an assistant attorney general doing the job that Jason has not been doing for the last 3 years, taking on the big banks, the big tech companies, the slumlords who are making it hard for people to put a roof over their head. And I've been in the private sector litigating and arguing in court against the governor and the attorney general and having success. So I think my legislative experience, my public sector experience, and my private sector experience lend itself to this moment to really take this office and take it to the next level.
Now, both candidates, both Jones and Taylor, say if elected, they are committed to fighting for equal opportunity and putting Virginians first. Live in Norfolk, Shane Fordham, 13 News Now.
All right, Shane, thank you. Well, some people may wonder why they didn't have an option to vote for a Republican in the lieutenant governor or attorney general races today. That's because John Reed, the GOP candidate for lieutenant governor, and Jason Miyares, the Republican candidate for attorney general, have already secured their party's nominations. Another Republican, John Curran, has launched a write-in campaign to try to win the lieutenant governor position in November. And likewise, the Virginia governor's race was not on your primary ballot today. Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears will face Democrat and former Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger in November. They are both the only gubernatorial candidates who qualified for each of their parties.
Candidates at the local level are waiting to see if they'll come out victorious tonight as well. In Norfolk, it's a battle for Commonwealth's attorney. Incumbent Ramin Fatahi and challenger John Butler faced off on the Democratic ballot. They both campaigned hard around the city in recent weeks. Madison Schlegel has the latest from both campaigns in Norfolk tonight. Madison, how are things?
Yeah, we're at the New Hope Christian Center here in Norfolk. It's where incumbent Ramin Fatahi is having his watch party this evening against John Butler. And he joins us right now. Ramin, this has been a fantastic turnout here. Do you mind just telling me first, why was it important that this was the place that you wanted to show your face in the community this evening?
Well, New Hope Community and Center. The name says it all. Pastor Durham and his congregation have been very good to me over the years. We are in the heart of the city, and it is a place where we can all come together in fellowship, knowing that we've left it all on the field and that we are watching democracy in action.
Well, right, and it's been a long year, not only for you, but your family, for the community itself, and you've been serving as Commonwealth Attorney here in Norfolk since 2022. In the years that you've served in this position, what have been some peaks, pitfalls that you've seen?
Well, coming in the middle of the COVID violence spike, it was tough. There was a lot of demands for a rollback of criminal justice reform. That was tough, and knowing that there were people in the city who didn't want me, that was tough. But knowing that criminal justice reform was right, knowing that if I stayed the course, that I could show that you can have public safety and civil rights at the same time, and seeing that come to pass, watching violence numbers in Norfolk drop, murder numbers drop, property crime numbers drop, and the jail population drop. That has been immensely gratifying. It's not about me, it's about following the data and knowing that we can have a safer city and a fairer city at the same time.
Well, of course, and you use the word community. You've got your son here with you right now, so we love to see those faces and make those connections too. And in talking to the people that you have here today, what would you say are some of those key things in the races that they're thinking about when they're going to those ballots today?
It is about fairness. It is about the fact that we don't choose our parents, we don't choose our race, we don't choose our sex. Those are all things that are given to us. And those things should not bear on our brand of justice. Rich people and poor people, princes and paupers, the connected and not connected, the fortunate and the unfortunate. We are all equal in the eyes of the law, and for pretty much our whole history, we've been treated unequally. The people who have supported me, I'm grateful to them. I have asked them to support me because I believe that we should all be treated equally. And that is the principle on which I've run.
Well, and of course, and over the last few months, you and Butler have had debates. You guys have had public opportunities to talk about things. And hearing some of his responses to some key points that citizens have raised to him, what is your response to maybe some of his answers?
Beware of anybody who answers statistics with anecdotes. We need to look at the climate and not the weather. Saying that today it's rainy and therefore it'll rain for the rest of our lives, we know that doesn't work, and it doesn't work in criminal justice. I've been waiting this entire race for specifics, and we haven't gotten any, but I have offered up specifics in contrast. So it's been a question of moving forward or backward, whether money and power are going to bear on our system of justice or whether the people are. And we will find out our answer in due course.
Beautiful. Last question for you. It's been a long day for people out hitting the ballots, and it's going to be an even longer day. It's just the beginning of what's going to be a long day for you. Still too early to maybe talk about numbers now. But so far, how are you feeling about how today is panning out?
We knew this would be a tough fight. We knew that the numbers are going to seesaw back and forth. That's what they're doing. We may find out tonight what the outcome is. We may not. But whatever the outcome is, I trust in our citizens.
All right. Thank you so much, Ramin. We appreciate you taking here a second to speak with us on such a busy evening. And once again, that was incumbent Ramin Fatahi here for Norfolk Commonwealth's Attorney. Later this evening at 10 p.m., we'll be at the Icon in Norfolk, where John Butler is having his watch party for this evening. We'll catch up with their campaign and talk about what their hopes are for tonight and how tonight has been looking for them. Again, live in Norfolk, Madison Schlegel, 13 News Now.
All right, Madison, thank you so much for that. Well, Virginia is one of only 2 states having a state election cycle this year, so there are a lot of people watching the Commonwealth. So here to help us understand the big issues and moments in this election, we have political analyst Dr. Eric Claville and Professor Dr. Leslie Coggle joining us. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. We always like having you on because you're always so great putting things in perspective. So first of all, let's think about Virginia and the fact that so many people are watching this state and looking at it as a bellwether in terms of what kind of a grip does Trump have on this state. So your thoughts on that. What does this election say to the rest of the country?
Well, Virginia is going to be the canary in the coal mine, as we say. So you're going to see the Commonwealth speak to what the policies of the federal government under the Trump 2.0 administration says about the rest of the country. Keep in mind, Northern Virginia, suburbs of Washington, D.C. We look at the executive orders that took place as relates to cutting various agencies and jobs.
And all the federal workers who lost their jobs.
Yes, real jobs, right? In addition to that, contracts that are cut here in Hampton Roads in supporting of defense. And then we also look at the social policies as well. We look at what's happening with ICE raids. We look at what's happening overseas with international conflicts and how that affects our families here in Hampton Roads as relates to the military. So the question becomes, does Virginia support these policies, hand over fist, or will it speak against it, but not speak against it in a small way, but in a massive way, in wanting to turn the executive offices here over and give the Democrats the enthusiasm and excitement going into the November election?
Well, already we're hearing about the vote count, the early vote count being up about 70,000 among Democrats. And what does that say to you?
I think that says a lot about the enthusiasm, especially if you consider that's compared to 2021 when there was a competitive gubernatorial primary
On the
ticket. So this is people coming out to vote, in particular Democrats coming out to vote when Abigail Spanberger was unopposed, right? They were voting on downstate races. So I think that really tells you something about the level of enthusiasm, not just how people feel about the policies, but whether or not they feel engaged or agitated enough to actually come out to vote. In particular, to come out to vote in what is always a low turnout election.
Right.
Primaries are low turnout. It is an off-year election, and the people who vote in a presidential election year, particularly when President Trump is on the ticket, are different than people who vote in these off-year elections. So I think we're seeing a lot of enthusiasm, and if you're a Democrat running or you're interested in how the Democrats are going to do in a year, you've got to be looking at these early turnout numbers and thinking, okay, right, this gives us some hope that what we're going to see is not the same as what we saw in 2024.
Because all the House seats are up, I believe, in November as well. Yeah, and when you look at the last presidential race, you saw where Harris won Virginia by 6 points, which might have been closer than what some people might have expected. But obviously, we could see a shift with this election. We'll have to see. All right, what about the lieutenant governor race? Are you seeing any kind of surprises right now? The top three, it looks like it's back and forth between Stoney, Rouse, and Gonzalo Hashmi.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Again, no surprise there as relates to who the top three are.
Okay.
The question becomes the areas in which these individuals represent. How would they turn out for these particular three? When you look at Rouse, Hampton Roads being the epicenter of political power, with the Speaker of the House, President Pro Tem, and also the large amount of representation you especially have from the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus in this area.
Okay.
So you look at all that and how that support will go. And then on top of that, you look at the areas in which Senator Hashmi and also former mayor of Richmond, Stoney, will probably split. So, which is the Richmond area, Henrico, and how will Northern Virginia fare? So when you look at all that and add that up, along with Rouse's history and at Virginia Tech in Southwest Virginia, and how those two others will fare in that area, I think you have to give the edge to Senator Rouse as relates to the numbers, especially with the numbers being virtually tied right now.
All right, you agree with that?
You know, I think the only caveat I would add there is when we looked at the early voting numbers, Hampton Roads wasn't ranking in the top in terms of early vote turnout. So Senator Rouse has really got to be depending a lot on Hampton Roads voters turning out disproportionately relative to Northern Virginia, Charlottesville, and Richmond. So I don't know that I would say that anybody has an edge in this race. I think it's going to be really close, and this is going to be one of those races we probably see decided by, like, the winner has 24%, and I would imagine it's going to be pretty close.
Yeah, because there's no runoff, so you're going to win with 20-something% probably.
Absolutely. There's no 50+1.
Right.
in this one. Not like we're going to see in the Attorney General's race. Now, that's definitely one that's going to be extremely close.
Yeah, it is close right now, but you have two really good candidates and who have very similar positions. There's not a lot of difference in their policies. It's kind of experience versus kind of I don't want to call him a newcomer, but someone who has not been a prosecutor in any way. What your take on that race?
Yeah, so my take on that race is, again, you have two, really good candidates running. And if I look at the Democratic ballot this time, the one thing that speaks to me is that candidates are strategic about when they run. And when they feel like they have a good chance of winning, they throw their hat in the ring. There's a reason you see so many people vying for these Democratic state seats right now.
Okay.
They think the next year is going to be a good election year for Democrats, which it usually is for the party who doesn't control the White House in these off-year elections. So you've got a lot of strong candidates. And again, there's not always a huge amount of policy differentiation between them. So it's really about getting out the vote, right? Getting voters to the polls. And this is always what primary elections are about. So it's not sexy, but this is where we are.
Taylor is really trying to come at Jones in terms of the experience. But he was a former state delegate. He was assistant attorney general in Washington, D.C., and then worked as a private attorney. Is that argument going to work?
I don't think so, because there's also another factor in these elections, is likability. And then you also have something Taylor doesn't have that Jones has, and that's the lineage that you have in the legal system. Of course, now his father, who's recently passed away, Judge Gerald Jones, and of course his mother, that all served in the legal community. So you have that legacy that he carries with him, especially here in Hampton Roads. Now, when you look at overall, how will those two individuals play again in Northern Virginia? If you look at Henrico, Richmond, look at Hampton Roads, those areas, that's where they're from, that's where they serve. So you can kind of give the edge to them there, especially with their good track record. How does Northern Virginia vote?
Who gets Northern Virginia? It's kind of a toss-up, maybe.
Yeah, there's one thing I would disagree with a little bit here. I think experience does matter when people aren't thinking, let's throw everyone out in election years. That plays well. And I do wonder with Jones, if one of the things that might affect voters is he was in the House of Delegates, but he resigned his seat. And he resigned his seat after Republicans won back the House. And I think, for some voters, one of the things that it might seem like is, well, I didn't really want to serve when I wasn't in power. So, that sort of thing, I think, can leave a bad taste in voters' mouth, particularly in the district in which he was elected to serve right before he resigned. So he has a political history here. He has experience, and it might not all be positive. That being said, he is very closely tied in to the political community here in ways that should give him, a leg up in Hampton Roads. How that plays in other parts of the state, I don't know.
He ran before.
And I would say the point that you bring up, that's a great conversation at the bar conventions or at the bar. But voters don't care about that because it's too deep in the weeds. But when you look, especially the district in which he did leave, in order to go into the private sector.
It's a different district, though.
It's a different district.
Different district. But they're voting for statewide office. And the other thing I would say about primary voters, they are weird ducks, right? Like the few thousand people who are going to vote in kind of each of these cities for primaries, they follow politics a lot more closely than everybody else. This is one of the things that always makes primaries so fun and so surprising, right? These are people who generally know more about politics, and that makes them more attentive to the situation kind of as it sits, and kind of makes some of the things they do a little bit more unexpected.
Definitely more of the informed voter going out to the polls today than what we would see in November.
Definitely agree with that.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about, before we toss it back to Dana, the Commonwealth's attorney. We just saw Ramin Fatahi do an interview with our reporter Madison Schlegel, and he has a race this time. I mean, John Butler supported wholeheartedly by Mayor Alexander. What might we see? What is the advantage that Fatahi has versus Butler, would you say?
Well, being an incumbent and also being community focused. Keep in mind, Ramin Fatahi is one of the few progressive Commonwealth attorneys or district attorneys, depending on which jurisdiction that you're in, that still exists today after the Black Lives Matter movement, more specifically the murder of George Floyd. You saw a lot of communities turn to progressive DAs or Commonwealth attorneys. Now you're seeing those individuals being challenged and some losing, a lot losing because of the message tough on crime, right? So that message starts to resonate. with individuals in various communities when you see an increase in crime in certain areas, whether it be petty crime, petty larceny, or whether it be violent crime.
Right.
So I think when you look at the advantages of being smart on crime, is also decreasing crime rates as opposed to lock them up, throw away the key type mentality. It depends on which demographic you're looking at. If you're a business owner, if you're a community, or if you're a citizen that's had your car broken into, of course, you're going to look more closely at what are we going to do about crime itself. If you're someone whose community is affected by individuals that do petty crime but lose years of their lives for it, you're also going to look at this in a different way. So I think being community focused and the advantage of communicating effectively smart progressive crime policies would be his advantage. So, but the question becomes, do you get that in a 15-second political campaign?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and one of the things I wonder about with this race is outside money came into this, and it included a lot of mailers that went out to voters and push polls. So you receive a phone call that seems like it's a poll that wants your opinion, and somebody's feeding you information, and it was very negative about Fatih's challenger, tying him to Donald Trump, MAGA, kind of pulling out some of these social justice issues. So a lot of voters received those mailers, and in a race that people are likely to have less information about than the statewide races, those could have a real effect.
Do you think it could turn some voters off the negativity?
So we've got research on that says voters say they don't like negativity, but they remember it and they learn from it. And I would imagine that there's so much negativity among Democratic Party voters, people who strongly identify toward President Trump, that could stick, and that could really help the incumbent here by tagging his challenger as associated with Donald Trump, even though those associations are a lot more tenuous than you might think, given the realities.
Do we know why Alexander is so supportive of Butler? I don't know. We don't exactly know what that dynamic is. Something's going on there, but yeah, okay.
It's an uncommon situation, yeah.
You don't have to answer that. All right, Dana, we're going to throw it back to you. Thank you so much. We're going to come back. We're going to do more talking tonight on 13 News Now Plus, so don't go anywhere. All right, Dana.
All right, thanks so much, Janet. And we do have a race that we want to call at this time, an hour and a half after polls close. Timothy Anderson versus Christina Felder in the House of Delegates 97th District primary race. We are calling this race for Tim Anderson. We see those results on the screen again, just an hour and a half after polls close, but this is a clear win right now at this point. More than 90% of voters going for Tim Anderson. The Republican versus Christina Felder, Republican in the House of Delegates 97th District primary. We'll have continued analysis of primary election night through the night here on 13 News Now Plus. You can also get even more information on 13newsnow.com. We have live election results there. And of course, as you just heard, they are being constantly updated, so you can check on any race at any time. For a quick way to get to that page on your phone, you can text us. You see that number is on your screen, 757-628-6200. If you send a text message with the word results, you'll get a reply with a link to all of our election coverage. Make sure you text us. This does not work with a phone call. And we are just getting started with our election night coverage, so make sure to keep it here all night long. We'll have live results playing on 13 News Now Plus. Keep the stream up to get those updates.
All right, and at 9 p.m., we'll be back with more live reports as candidates wait to find out if they won, and we'll be live on big races in Newport News and Chesapeake. We will see you then.